Dang, I forgot to sniff before. There, I sniffed. No. Wait. Oh, confusion. Oh. Day 0 to 8 start. No. Time for cringe. Oh, today is 9/11. Time. It's because I have no life. Hey. That was funny. Now let's look at the results. Dang it. Now let's look at the results. These are the averages of each individual session. These are the averages of each individual session. Day 0 and 1 were the only days where I had a decent cube. Day 0 and 1 were the only days where I had a decent cube. Okay, I'm not going to listen to every single one. I'd say that day 1 is more representative of my actual average. Or at least what I average at my best when my cube is good and there aren't other factors such as tiredness slowing my solves down. As a result of my cube getting worse, it's hard to tell whether any actual improvement took place. The turning of my GAN cube steadily declined throughout. The turning of my GAN cube steadily The turning of my GAN cube steadily declined throughout. The turning of my GAN cube steadily declined throughout. On the second half of day 5, I switched to my MoU RS3, and I averaged under 8.1 for that part of the session. But then on day 6, I tried going back to the GAN cube, which was a mistake. Even during the first half of the session where tiredness wasn't a factor, I was averaging 8.5. Then on day 7, I switched entirely to the RS3 and averaged 8.22. I probably would have averaged 8.15 if I wasn't tired at the end of the session. Days 0 and 8 were supposed to be the sessions used to compare before the week and after the week and see if improvement took place. Does that sentence even make sense? I'm just going to say nope instead. Nope. Nope. Here are the best and worst single times from each day. My best overall time was 4.63, and my worst was 4. Nice. My best overall time was 4.63, and my worst was 23.22. Here are the best averages. Here are the best averages from each session, and here are the best averages achieved overall. Most of the significant best averages were achieved during day 1 and at the end of day 5. The average of 25 and 50 were overall PBs at the time. My PBs before this session were 7.30 average of 25 and 7.50 average of 50. Here is the average of 100 progression for each session. All of the long straight lines are where I took breaks. Day 1 was the most consistently good. I don't know. Day 1 was the most consistently good. I stayed under 8.4 most of the time and had a long section averaging 7.9 to 8.0. Here are days 2, 3, and 4. This part of day 5 is when I switched to my MoU RS3. This part of day 5 is when I switched to my MoU RS3. Day 6 was the worst. The average went up to 8.8 at one point. Day 7, I switched entirely to the RS3, so the average was more consistently good than most of the days. Here are the average of Here are the average of 100 progressions for day 0 and 8. They both ranged from 8.4 to 8.2. Here are the time distributions for each day. All of these are for solves from 5 seconds to 12 seconds, except day 2, which includes 2 4-second solves. Every day had more 7s than 8s, except day 4 and 6. Day 1 was the only day with more 6s than 9s. The actual heck, how did I get more 6s than 9s? Here are the time distributions for day 0 and 8. Even though the average of day 8 was only 0.05 worse than day 0, that heavily affected this distribution. Here are the number of sub-6 solves for each day. Of the 1,000 solved days, oh dang it, wait, that doesn't make sense. Of days 1 through 7, day 7 had the most with 21, and day 4 had the least with 8. Of days 1 through 7, day 7 had the most with 21. Now let's combine days 1 through 3 into one session. Now let's combine days 1 through 3. Dang it. Now let's combine days 1 through 7 into one session and look at the results. Here are the best averages. The only new information here is the average of 2,000 and 5,000. The average of all the solves from days 1 through 7 is 8.27. Here's the average of 1,000 progression from Here's the average of 1,000 progression for days 1 through 7. Each of these boxes represents one day. This shows how bad day 6 was. This shows how bad day 6 was. Wait, what? This shows how bad day 6 was. Why the heck was it making that noise? It better not be making that noise for all of them. This shows how bad day 6 was. This shows how bad day 6 was. Here's the average of 100 progression. What? It didn't even start. Here's the average of 100 progression. Really? Same idea. Wow, that was funny. Same idea. This represents the same information I showed earlier in the video, but combined into one graph. Oh no. This represents the same information I showed earlier in the video, but combined into one graph. No. This represents the same information I showed earlier in the video, but combined... Stop. This represents the same information I showed earlier in the video, but combined into one graph. I don't feel like drawing boxes again. I don't feel like drawing boxes again. Here's the time distribution for days 1 through 7. I got 96 5s and 2 4s. Combining days 0 through 8 yields similar results. The best average of 5,000 went from 8.24 to 8.23. The average went from 8.27 to 8.28. For days 0 through 8, I got a total of 100 5-second solves. Finally, we will combine days 0 through 8 with the session that had... Finally, we will combine days 0 through 8 with the session that had been taking place for about 3 weeks beforehand. Now we find that I ultimately broke my PB average of 5,000 and 10,000. My previous PBs were 8.19 average of 5,000 and 8.48 average of 10,000. The 8.48 average of 10,000 was achieved during the year-long cubing session, which was... The 8.48 average of 10,000 was achieved during the year-long cubing session, which was a separate session. If this 15,000 solve session had been combined with the year-long cubing session, the change wouldn't have been so dramatic. I think there was sound. If this 15,000 solve session had been combined with the year-long cubing session, the change wouldn't have been so dramatic. There was a stinking thing that messed up my recording. If this 15,000 solve session had been combined with the year-long session, the change wouldn't have been so dramatic. The average of this whole session is 8.24. Here is the average of 1,000 progression for both sessions. This shows the separation between this. I don't know what to say there. Separating them into 2 sessions. As expected, the second session was... Like, this is an unscripted part. Crap, let me just write it down. Be better. What is this one? You can clearly see that the week-long session was not an improvement compared to the first session. That was fair. That was funny. Here is the time distribution for both sessions combined. I now have a total of 224 5s, 7 4s, and 1 3. So what was I hoping? So what I was hoping was that as a result of doing so many solves, my average would improve and I would get lots of PB averages and good single solves. I did end up getting 4 PB averages, average of 10,000, 5,000, 50, and 25. But I only got 2 sub-5 solves, and my average of 1,000 for the most part ranged from being about the same as before to way worse. The improvement I was expecting certainly wasn't there. Stop. The improvement I was expecting certainly wasn't there. I am tempted to blame my cubes for this result. Yes, my GAN cube basically died, and in the process it negatively affected my times for a significant portion of the week-long session. But that's probably not the only reason that my average didn't improve. It's possible that doing 1,000 solves a day is not an effective way to improve. Maybe doing so many solves results in placing too much physical and mental stress on myself. Still, though, my cube going bad is making this analysis much more difficult. Maybe sometime in the future I will try this again, but only using a really good cube the whole time. Anyways, that's about it for this video. I would really appreciate feedback. I would really appreciate feedback on what you thought of this video so I can improve for future videos. Oh, great. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. So. Let's look at the results. Dang you! Dang it! Why did I forget to do the first part? Now let's look at the result. It took me only 23 minutes to record all that. So therefore, bye. Right. As a result of doing this many solves, did my average improve? Did I get tons of PB averages and good single solves? There we go. Now we're done. The first thing I'm gonna need to do is... I'm not doing that part yet. I'm gonna actually do... I don't know. Okay, fine, I'll do that. So what I need to do...
I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. Did this lead to significant improvement in my average? Well, you'll find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 200 solve session and take
Oh,
note of the average. Starting the next
okay.
day, I would do 1,000 solves per day for a week. Then a day after the week ended, I would do another 200 solve session and compare that to the initial.
It was 8.32 versus had burning almost the entire time.
To August 25th, the day when I did my initial 200 solve session.
Funny, 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 funny. Funny, 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 funny. Oh.
I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. Did this lead to significant improvement in my average? Well,
Dang it. Dang, dang, dang. Dang, dang, dang. Dang, dang, dang. Dang, 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 dang.
I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a
Do, do, do. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
1,000 solves. I'm going to do 1,000. I'm going to.
Oh, come on, that's not even the right one. No. No. Not I'm going to. No, I'm not going to. What are you doing? What was the original?
1,000 Rubik's. I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves.
Dude, which one is it? No. Screw you. Screw you. Screw you. Taking 5 billion years.
The day before the week starts, I will do 200 solves and see how those.
Dude, this is all messed up. Where are all the rest of
I
them?
did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. Did this lead to significant improvement in my average? Well, you'll find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 200.
Okay, where's... It's gotta be like right around here.
Well, you'll find out shortly.
Oh.
Did this lead to significant improvement in my average? I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day.
115.
I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. I did 1,000 a week. 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. I did. I did
Oh my.
1,000 Rubik's Cubes.
Oh my goodness.
I did 1,000 Rubik's Cubes solves. I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. As a result of doing this many solves, did my as a res- as a result of doing this many solves, did my average improve? Did I get tons of PB? Did I improve? Did I get tons of PB averages and good single solves? Averages and good single solves? Averages and good single solves? Tons of PB averages and good single solves? I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. As a result of doing this many solves, did my average improve? Did I get tons of PB averages and good single solves? Did this lead to significant? Well, you'll find out shortly.
It was 17.
Well, you'll find. You'll find out shortly. Find out shortly. I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. Did this lead to significant improvement in my average? Well, you'll find out shortly. My plan was that I would find out shortly.
No.
My
I need to cut out the random videos part, but it's possible to re-record the audio thing. Or
my plan was that I would. My plan was that.
I'm
My
gonna.
plan was that I would do an initial 200 solve session and take note of the average. Starting the next day,
So I'm just gonna re-add the audio clip. So
find out shortly.
basically, $10.9. So 10, 10.90. The first 10 seconds have been used.
I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week. As a result of doing this many solves, did my average improve? Did I get tons of PB averages and good single solves? Well, you'll find out shortly. My plan was that
My plan was that bling bloom, bling bloom, bling bloom, bling bloom. My plan was that bling bloom, bling bloom, bling bloom, bling bloom.
I would do an initial 200 solve session and take. Plan was that I would do an. Plan. My plan was that find out shortly. My plan was that find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an. My plan was that I would do an initial 200. Find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 2.
What the heck, dude?
Find out shortly.
This is bull. 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 Windows Movie Maker is bull. Oh.
Find out shortly. Find out shortly. Find out shortly.
This is bull.
Find out shortly. My plan was that find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 200 solve session. Take note of the average. Find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 200. Find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 200 solve session and take note of the average. Next day I would do 1,000. Starting the next day, I take note of the average. Next day I would.
This is bull. Okay, I forgot how to do this. How do you do this without it being messed up? Oh, I forgot. What did I do?
Starting the next day, I take note of the average. The next day, I would take note of the average. Starting the next day, I would take note of the average. Next day.
This is bull. This is bull. Do I just do this? I don't know if this is going to work. We still haven't gotten back yet. It's 4:20. 4:20. 4:20.
Well, you'll find out. Starting the next day, note of the average. Take note of the average. Starting.
This is what I'm doing. This. Right here. This should work.
Starting the next day, take note of the average. Next day.
Oh, great job! Wait. What we're going to do is make it so
Note of the average. Starting note of the average.
we're going to like do this. Let's see if this works.
Take note of the average. Next day, starting the next
Bull! Oh, I hate this. I don't even know how I dealt with this last time.
Starting the next day, I would do note of the average. Starting the
Oh. Does that have anything to it?
Take note of take note of
This is this is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid. I forgot to fix the problem. Oh! Uh, 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 uh,
take note of the average. 1,000.
You're dumb.
I did one.
You're dumb. Oh. Oh.
Take note of the average. 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves. I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube and take note of the average. 1,000
Even if the audio clip isn't there, it still does that. Even if this thing isn't here, it's just here.
1,000 Rubik's Cubes. 1,000.
Come on. Come on.
I did 1,000 Rubik's. Take note of the average.
Come on.
Starting the next day, I would do 1,000 solves per day for a week. Take note of the average. Starting the next day, I would take note of the average. Take note of the average. Starting the next, take note of the average. Starting.
This is stupid.
Take note of the average. Next day, I would do 1,000 solves.
That was funny.
Next day, take note of the average. Starting the next, take note of the average. Starting the solve session and take note of the average. Starting. Next day. My plan was that I would find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial take note of the app. Solve session and take note of the solve session. Go do an initial 200 solve session and take note of the average. Go do an initial. that I would do an initial 200 solve. Was that I would do an initial 200 solve. Was that I would do an initial 200 solve session. Was that I would do an initial 200 solve session and take note of the average.
14.97, 12.2, 2.77. 1, 2, 3, 6, 4, 5, 1.
Note of the average. Starting the next day. I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week.
As a result of doing this many solves, did my average improve? Did I get tons of PB averages and good single solves?
Well, you'll find out shortly. Plan was that I would do an initial 200 solves. I did 1,000 Rubik's Cube solves per day for a week.
As a result of doing this many solves, did my average improve? Did I get tons of PB averages and good single solves?
Well, you'll find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 200 solve session and take note of the find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an find out shortly.
I don't even care.
My plan was that I would do an initial 200 solve session and take note of the average. Starting the next day, I would do 1,000 solves per day for a week. Solves well, you'll find out shortly. My plan was that I would do an initial 200 solve session and take note of the average. Starting the next day, I would do 1,000 solves per day for a week. Then a day after the week ended, I would do another 200 solve session and compare that to the 1,000 progression interaction. It fluctuates between 0.03. Go to August 25th. Go to August 25th, the day when I did my initial 200 solve session.